My name is Anshul. I happen to know Mr. Ajita for quite a while now, and we thought that we will do sort of a webinar in order to help you navigate the current situation and to help you prepare better for the future opportunities. I am assuming you all were in the webinar that we conducted last Saturday on AWS, and in the same series, we thought that we will do a session on business analysis, and then you can connect the dots and prepare yourself better for the opportunities that you might foresee in the future. Now, even if you are in the first year, even if you are not from an IT background, even if you are in the fourth year, even if you already have 5 years of experience, I'm pretty sure there would be certain things that would be valuable for you from this webinar. I would like this to be more of an interactive session and something that okay, there are certain folks who are saying that it's not audible. I see it's not audible to Sonali, it's not audible to Tanya. How about the other folks? Can you hear me? Okay, I see most of the people can actually hear me. Those who cannot hear, do you mind logging off once and then logging back in? Most of the time, the trick actually works. And in the meantime, I'll continue. So we'll be talking about business analysis, the careers in business analysis, how you can jumpstart your career, and consider this to be your guide to launching your career in the business analysis. Now, a word of disclaimer. So I'm not from academics. So my perspective to business analysis and all the things that I'm going to talk about today would be more from an industry perspective. So and bear with me, I don't have a formal experience in presenting and sort of taking classes online. So if there anything where I'm lagging or where I'm not up to the mark, you can certainly ping me in the chat, and I'll make sure to address that. About myself, so my name is Anshul. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in information systems from the State University of New York. I've been practicing business analysis for the last 5 to 6 years or so, and have got an opportunity to work with different clients across different verticals and different domains, sort of help them aligning their IT strategy with their business needs. So I'll try to give you a gist of uh, what I have learned so far in this presentation. So I think we can start. First of all, what we are going to cover today, I will categorize this session in four broad heads. First, we'll talk about what business analysis is and how it differs from business analytics. Now, analytics has become a buzzword in the last couple of years. Everybody wants to be into analytics. They want to be a business analyst or a data analyst, data scientist, and whatnot. There is another term which has been there in the industry for the last 20 years or so, which is business analysis. Analytics has become a buzzword in the last couple of years, so to say. So we'll see what business analysis is, how it differs from business analytics, but we'll be focusing more on business analysis here rather than the analytics. Then I'll talk about the 5W1H model. That's a model that you can actually apply to anything across any facet of your life if you want to get more understanding on a particular problem, or even if you want to understand a concept in its greater depth. So it's nothing but the 5W is of the questions that you need to ask in order to get a better understanding of the topic, and the 1H is how you can actually address those questions or how you can actually get the answers. Then we'll talk about the career options. I think that's the topic that that you guys would be most interested in. But understanding of the topic would help you to get into the industry in a more optimized manner. And then we'll see, how the practice of business analyst is evolving and how it is changing and how it may potentially change in the future because of the pandemic situation and because of COVID. Now, that's my personal perspective. Certain folks may not agree with me, or you may find different conflicting informations online. So I just want to put that disclaimer that these are my personal take on how business analysts would evolve in the post-COVID era. So let's start. I think number one, what is analysis and what is analytics? Sometimes people see these as two different things. There is a concept in Chinese philosophy which is called yin yang. Essentially, it means that there are two conflicting information. Let's say we talk about two different directions, north and south. But north essentially is altogether different to what south is, 360-degree apart. Not 360 degrees, sorry, 180-degree apart. So that's the philosophy of yin yang, that even if it's 180-degree apart, both would complement each other. Consider, that there is the direction north, but the direction north doesn't make any sense if you do not have direction south. So you can't see that in isolation, right? You need to have the other variable put in the context to get the meaning of the first variable. The same thing with analysis and analytics. Essentially, you're solving the business problem. These are different approaches to solving the business problems. So we'll look at three approaches: the business analysis, the business analytics, and maybe the hybrid role, and if there is any hybrid role, if it actually exists. Talking about business analysis, but business analysis would focus more on the business processes, what the business does, what their needs are, and if you are in a spot to recommend them certain solutions so that they can achieve or fulfill those needs. That is the practice of business analysis. Business analytics would be more about data, talking about the data, running analytics on top of that data, or running simulations or forecasting on that data. If there is any hybrid role, in my personal opinion, yes. I think business analysis complements business analytics, and business analytics complement business analysis. You need to have both in order to have a successful business strategy. Let's take an example what business analysis would be. Say, for example, I'm assuming you all use, let's say, Zomato. Now, 2 months back, all you were doing was ordering food from restaurants, and that's what their business model was. How it has evolved, now you can actually order groceries online as well. Why that actually happened? That actually happened because of certain trigger, certain event that actually happened, which propelled Zomato as a company to onboard some new feature onto their app. So when you analyze what the current situation is, that is the ongoing pandemic situation, and then you decide that you want to onboard another feature onto your website, that is the practice of business analysis. Now, let's say if the owner of Zomato comes to you and asks you that, I want to see how much will I be able to earn only from grocery delivery in the next 6 months, or only from the restaurants in the next 6 to 12 months, or from certain restaurants which are only a part of one specific geographic area in a particular city, let's say Indore. So you are doing more of simulation and forecasting and data analysis, which becomes business analytics. Now, think about a situation. Can business analytics exist if you do not do the analysis? I think it cannot. And that is the reason why it's a hybrid role. And I think in the post-COVID era, both the skills would complement each other, and a successful analyst would have business analysis experience as well as business analytics experience. So any questions so far, you can put that in the chat. Okay, I don't think there is any question. If there are any questions, you can reserve that to be asked later in the conversation, and I can certainly address those. So let's talk about the 5W1H framework. Now, this is not specific to business analysis, but you can actually apply that to any area of your life. You can. Okay, Ankita, I'll address about the hybrid role. So hybrid role is somewhere where you are doing analysis, you are trying to understand what the needs of the business are. At the same time, you are recommending them the solutions. Now, coupled up with data analysis on that you will also run a forecasting or a simulation for them, that how that would change. For example, let's say that you are hired as an analytics consultant for let's say a bank. What you would do is you will try to understand what their needs are. In the current situation, what their needs may be. Their need is that they want to obviously sell their products in a much better way, right? It may be their fixed deposits, or they want more customers to be onboarded onto their different products that they have, maybe the saving banks account or whatever it is that they have. You will identify those needs. You will recommend them the solution. That what can be a potential solution. A solution can be that you may recommend them a targeted marketing, right? You may want to recommend them that, okay, let's reach out to the students and the young generations through online medium, because that's where they can actually uh, uh, that's where they go, and that's where they can get to know more about the product, and can certainly be onboarded onto the product. Or what you can do is you can do more of a targeted marketing. That, let's say, we'll create an app so that they can upload all the documents there itself and get the account opened in the next 3 to 5 minutes, what Xs does these days. So this is more of business analysis that you are doing. At the same time, as an analytics consultant, what you would do is you would help them understand that if we go that route, we may actually increase the customers that are being onboarded onto our products by 50%, meaning that you would have more number of customers if we follow the IT strategy, or if you go through this particular digital transformation. So bottom line is, in the hybrid role, you would focus on the process, the business process, what the core operations of the business is, and at the same time, you would see the data and run forecasting on top of the data. Going back to the previous example, you can actually do forecasting and run some sort of risk simulation and risk modeling, and can show it to your decision maker, whoever the CFO and the CEO of that bank or the company is, and tell them that if we go that route, if we do the targeted marketing of the products that we have, what potential risk we may face in the future, so that you can take proactive measures in order to address those risks. I hope that answers your question. Coming back to the 5W1H model, this is about the questions that we need to ask in order to understand the topic at hand, and how we are going to address, or how we are going to get to the answers to that question. 5W, very simple: what, why, who, when, and where of the question. And the 1H would be how we are going to address that. We'll do a deep dive looking at all of those facets of 5W and 1H. Number one, what is business analysis? That is, we are actually asking the question of what is of the problem statement that we have, or the topic that we have, which is business analysis for now. There is a body called IIBA, which is a Canada-based body. It stands for International Institute of Business Analysis. I think it is the most renowned institute for everything business analysis. And our focus today is more on business analysis rather than analytics. So IIBA defines business analysis as a practice. Now, practice of what? Practice of enabling a particular change in an organizational context by defining the needs and recommending solutions so that you can deliver some sort of value to the stakeholders. Now, let's do a deeper dive and sort of try to dissect the definition. Now, it is defining business analysis as a practice and not as a role. What does practice means? Let's say you do meditation every day. In general English, you call it, that I'm continuing with my meditation practice. Does that make you a meditator? I think it does not. You can still be a software engineer, you can still be a Java developer, and you can continue practicing meditation. The same way here also, that business analysis is more of a practice rather than more of a role. Even if you are a Java developer, you can certainly do some sort of tasks that are outlined within business analysis framework. So it's more of a practice rather than role. Now, practice of what? Practice of enabling a change. What is a change? Going back to our previous example of Zomato, they were delivering food through the restaurants, right? And in the last 2 months, they have started delivering groceries as well. So by having that new feature on the website, you have enabled a particular change. What triggered the change? COVID situation actually triggered that particular change. We are having this seminar, or call it webinar, online because of physical distancing, and we cannot be in a particular room and have the session. So it's the practice of enabling a particular change. If there is any change, then you would require the business analysis practice in an organizational context. What does that mean? Organizational context is nothing but in the context of a particular company or an organization. Now, how you do that? You define the needs, what the need of the company is. Going back to the Zomato example, need of the company is that all the restaurants are shut. We still want to be in the business. How we do that? We do that by enabling some other feature so that we can be in the business, make more money. What solution you would recommend them? Let's have another feature that you can, actually sell the groceries. The same thing with Swiggy also. If you have seen with Swiggy, there is a new feature called Swiggy Genie, which essentially is you don't really need to be a organization or a company or a shop. What you can do is, let's say you want certain books from me. You can go ahead, open Swiggy Genie. You can put the address there, and the Swiggy guy will come and then deliver it to where you want to get it delivered. So that's a new business model, right? That's because of a need. Somebody would have recommended Swiggy the solution, and then they implemented it. Now, the last thing is to deliver value to the stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? Stakeholder is a very important concept in business analysis. Stakeholder is anyone who would be impacted because of the work. It may be the owner of the company, it may be the employees of the company, it may be their delivery partners, because they get money through that. So their lives would be impacted. So anyone whose life is impacted would actually be the stakeholder. So that's how the IIBA defines business analysis. Most important is that it is the practice of enabling a particular change and focusing on needs and the solutions. So this is what. Let's go to why. Why essentially is business analysis important? Let's talk about, let's say you are in third year or fourth year of your engineering, you come up with a very good topic or, very good startup idea that you want to build an app like Zomato. You go about developing it, you put in a lot of efforts, a lot of number of man hours, a lot of money, everything, and you have a functional app like Zomato or Uber. But the question is, will you be able to sustain the market forces? Will you be able to address the return on investment that you have put in to create that particular app? You have already put in the efforts. There is a possibility it may not work out. Why? Because you're essentially creating a clone of what Zomato or Uber does. Rather than that, what you can do is you can put together a business analysis practice. You can analyze the current process, find the gaps which exist there, and then go about developing it. Let's take a tangible example. Going back to the Zomato example itself, you're creating the same app, and there is a need that, as a person in the COVID world, I want to make sure that everything is being cooked in a more hygienic manner. You may want to do a gap. There is a gap in the Zomato and Uber app for the post-COVID era. Okay, that as a hygiene conscious person, you may want to see that how the dishes are actually being prepared. So you may want to see on the app when the chef is actually preparing that dish, or how it is being prepared, or if they are following the sanitization requirements, and if they are keeping it in the most hygienic manner that they possibly can. How you can get it done? You can actually implement a feature in the app where you can see that video in the real time of when they are preparing that, as well as when the delivery partner is picking that order from that particular restaurant, so that you can be more satisfied with the delivery. That way, what you can have is, if you do that business analysis process early before actually getting into development, you can increase your return on investment. You can be more sure of the fact that this app can actually work, at least with the people who are more conscious about the hygiene. So that is one benefit. Another is the data-driven decision making. How that works is, let's say, for example, we'll take the most crucial example which is around us these days about, let's say, COVID. The administration, the collector of a particular city, or the administration of the particular city, if they do not have the data, if they do not have the data of where most of the cases are coming from, or if they do not have the data of the contact tracing, if they cannot trace it back to the original source from where the particular person actually contracted the virus, they cannot make a more informed decision. But if they have the data at hand, and if they know that, okay, majority of the cases these days are coming from, let's say, A sector of Sudhamanagar, they can actually lock down the entire A sector and keep up with the other operations in the other parts of the city. That way, it's more of a data-driven decision making. And same thing you can apply in any of any of the use case, any of the business problem that you have. For example, in my current work, I'm working for a banking client, and we are trying to understand how their credit card operations are working. And essentially, one particular use case that we are working is if they're directly paying onto the website, or if they are one loading the data onto some sort of wallet, let's say Paytm or PhonePe or whatever wallet it is, and then paying it. So that is one KPI that the business is trying to understand. That way what happens is we found that majority of the people for that particular bank are actually loading the data onto the wallet first and then recharging, or and then doing anything else. You can actually go to the website and directly use your credit card as well. Why they are not using it? That's what the business was trying to understand, and complement their decision making process with that data. What they have found is that the interface wasn't very robust, wasn't very user friendly, and that is one of the reason why people were going on loading the data, on loading the money onto the wallet, and then they were using it. So data driven decision making is very important, and you can actually arrive to that point if you put together a robust business analysis process in place. Now, the same thing with a cost-effective solution to the business problem. What that essentially means is, again, we'll take an example. Because of COVID, we have seen an upsurge in PPEs, masks, ventilators. Now, you need to put in a lot of efforts and money if you want to get into the business of manufacturing ventilators. But obviously, if you do that, as a precursor to that, you would want to do a robust analysis of the current process and find out the most cost-effective solution that you can recommend to the business, so that they don't get burned down once it is operational. So that's also another important aspect of why business analysis is necessary. There are other things as well, but in my opinion, these are the three things which are the most important when we are trying to understand the why. Now, who performs business analysis? This is a very good question, and there are different opinions on that. Again, as I said, that my perspective is more from industry and from what I have understood in the last 5 to 6 years. So I think business analysis, as we talked about in the definition, it's more about the practice rather than the role. So even if you are a Java developer, you can actually continue with the practice of business analysis. I mean, it's still analyze some of the processes or find gaps in some of the solution. Let's take another very simplistic example. Let's say your mom is worried about the virus, and she says that we need to have certain changes in our home. What you will tell her, if she just says, I'm very worried about the virus, you will tell her, okay, that we need to bring forth some changes onto our behaviors. There is some need, and what that need is, you will identify the need is to change the behavior. What is that behavior pattern? That whatever groceries you buy, you'll put that in the garage, or you'll put that in the veranda for 72 hours. That's a particular, recommending a solution to how you can actually deal with the virus. What you did in the most simplistic terms, you actually identified the needs of your mom and you recommended a solution to your mom. So you essentially did business analysis. Now it's as simple as that. It becomes complex when we are working with the complex solution, because as the saying goes, that for the complex problems we need complex answers. For the complex problems we need simple answers, but you need to analyze those complex processes in the most robust manner that you can. There are different titles for the practice of business analysis. The most common title is obviously requirement business analyst. Requirement analyst is also one of the title. We'll see that in the subsequent slides, that how many years of experience are required, and what are the job titles for those particular sections of your career. So we'll see that, but the most common job title for a person who performs business analysis is the business analyst. Now, when to do business analysis? That's also a very good question. I think business analysis can be performed always. Why? Let's see the Zomato example again. They were performing some sort of business analysis when they would have heard of COVID for the first time back in December or the early weeks of January. They must have created a team to perform business analysis to analyze the process and how they can evolve in the later coming months. At the same time, at the back end, currently also the team certainly would be working on performing some sort of analysis so that they can see how the things would evolve later down the line, let's say after 6 months or 12 months. God knows, maybe they are actually working on getting that feature onto the app where you can see how the person is uh, picking up the order and if they are doing it in the most hygienic manner or not. That's possible. So the bottom line is that business analysis must be performed always. It's a continuous process. It's an iterative process. What does that mean? Let's say, um, assuming you all are from IT and computer science background, in your third year, or I think in your fourth year, you would have taken a course called software engineering, where you would have studied about the SDLC model, and then there are different models. There is V model, iterative model, RAP, waterfall, and whatnot. Business analysis as a practice should be a continuous effort in an iterative process. You do something, let's say after 1 week or 2 week of getting some feedback from the business, you do some self introspection, you run some retrospectives on what you did in the last week and what you have achieved out of it, and how you can improve upon in the subsequent iterations that you would perform. That way, you have the most relevant information, relevant data, and up to date data to make better decisions. At the same time, it's an ever evolving process. What was true yesterday may not be true tomorrow, and what was true yesterday, what was false yesterday, may become true tomorrow. What that essentially means is that there is going to be, we hear the term new normal. This has become a buzzword because of COVID, but new normal has been very normal for the business analyst over the course of last 10 or 15 years, because every month certain things are changing. I'll give you a very specific example here. Couple of years back, if somebody was living in the US and they were filing for taxes, they were not required to tell how much real estate that they own in India. Now there is a change. What has become new normal is that everyone, NRIs who are living in the US, when they file for their taxes in the US, they actually have to tell how much money they have in their bank's account in India, or what sort of real estate they have in India. So that was the new normal. It came into the picture because of certain change prescribed by the government of the US and Canada. So it's an ever evolving process. All the companies, they have to evolve with that. Another tangible example can be, if you have heard the this year's budget, financial budget from the finance minister, there are certain different things that they have incorporated, how you want to file, or how you can actually file your taxes here in India itself. There are companies, for example, ClearTex. If you have heard of a company called ClearTex.in, and by the way, they hire a lot of Java developers, they hire a lot of business analysts also. So they would have to change their platform. They would have to incorporate some new features onto their platform. Why? Because they want to comply with the new regulations from the government. So, which will eventually, next year, this will actually become the new normal for the people. And that is why the business analysis process is an ever evolving process. And the business analyst must keep that in mind, that he or she has to keep on evolving as well. What that essentially means is keep on learning new stuff. Now, where we need to perform it. This slide is very important for anyone who actually wants to start the career in business analysis. Simplistic, in the most simplistic manner, business analysis can be performed anywhere. We saw that you actually perform business analysis for Zomato in the same way. When you work with your mom, you identify her needs and recommended the solution. To sanitize the different things and whatnot. You actually perform one specific task of business analysis. What that means is that it's industry agnostic. Agnostic in its literal meaning is that it's not dependent on anything. So business analysis as a practice is not dependent on a particular industry. You can apply it to bank, you can apply it to insurance, you can apply it to aviation, you can apply it to manufacturing, retail, you name it, and you can apply the practice of business analysis. What that means is that you can be an IT business analyst for a bank, you can be a business analyst for a grocery shop, you can be a business analyst for a DMart, you can be a business analyst for pretty much anything around the world, which is actually a good thing, because that opens up a lot of jobs to you and not confined to only IT companies. Now, having said that, you would actually be working for some sort of IT company, some sort of IT project, but that would be for a client which is not into IT. I'll give you one example. A friend of mine actually got a business analyst job yesterday itself with a company called Roche. Roche is a pharmaceutical company. They are putting together efforts to create a vaccination for COVID. So he actually got a job as IT business analyst for the pharmaceutical company. What he would be working on, he would be working on a system called Laboratory Information Management System, where they actually collect the samples of the tests that they have done on the animals, and eventually, how they would go through the clinical trials. So at the end of the day, he's an IT guy, but working for a pharmaceutical company. The third thing is domain knowledge. Now, as a precursor to performing business analysis, you actually need to understand. For example, if you are hired by a pharmaceutical company also, you need to at least understand what a drug is. You don't necessarily need to understand the chemistry behind that, but you need to understand the drug and how it works, or what clinical trials is, or how clinical trial is performed. That's the only way you would be able to understand the business. Another example, let's say you get a job with HSBC or JP Morgan Chase, and you are put onto a project where you are working with on the data analysis of the credit card data. Now you know that the credit card has a couple of different things: the credit card number, address, PIN code, CVV. These are very common things because you use it on a day-to-day basis. Pretty much the same thing with any industry. That you would have to have that particular knowledge. For example, let's say you're hired by Boeing as a company. Boeing manufactures the aircrafts that all the major airlines basically buy. Let's say you're working for an IT project as a business analyst for Boeing. You need to understand, in general, how aviation industry works. You need to at least have an understanding of the fares are dynamic in nature. It may change if you go to the website. If you check the fare from Indore to Delhi now, and if you check it after 1 hour, the fares may differ. Why that differs? Because aviation industry follows a dynamic fare policy, which means that it's not static, it will change. So its domain knowledge is very important. I'll give you one anecdote of one of my professors when I was pursuing my master's. He used to say that IT is important. Certainly IT is important, but business is mandatory. What that means is, let's say you got a fancy job from campus in Amazon as a software developer. You can certainly brag about it, that you are a software engineer for Amazon. You're working on so and so cool technology and whatnot. At the end of the day, let's assume that let's assume that Amazon goes out of the business and they are not able to sell the stuff online. Will they still keep you as a software engineer? I think they won't, right? Because if they are not able to carry forward with the business, they don't actually require a software engineer in place. So that's why domain knowledge is very important. How you can acquire domain knowledge? By reading the stuff, by reading the newspaper, by reading the magazines, by attending webinars, and by the very simple. For example, I don't know everything about every industry. I support 3 different clients. One is in a pharmaceutical industry, another one is in insurance, and one is a bank. Do I know everything about banking? No, I don't. Do I know everything about pharmaceutical? I don't. Do I know everything about insurance? I certainly don't. But what I do is I at least do a bit of document analysis on how, in general, the industry works. That helps me to perform my task as an IT business analyst. So domain knowledge is important. You guys are in your 3rd year, 4th year, I am assuming, and this is actually a very good starting point. This is something which I failed. This is something which I did not understand when I was in my 3rd year or 4th year, or when I was 22 or 23. I focused all of my energy on IT, which I don't think right now, in the hindsight, that it was the most most authentic or optimized way of dealing with the thing. So keep an open eye, keep your minds open, learn about the new things, learn about the new domains as well, which would certainly prove very beneficial down the road. Now, the most important question, how to perform the business analysis. That, I think, is the most important question. That's the elephant in the house, and that is the question that anyone would ask. There are 6 steps. We talked about IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysis. It actually prescribes more than 100 different techniques on how you can actually perform business analysis. I have condensed those 100 techniques into six broad aspects. I'm sorry, nine broad aspects or nine broad categories. What I'll do is I'll give you one technique. I'm sorry, one method, and then a specific technique that can be used. Depending on the scenario, those techniques may differ. There are n number of techniques that you can use. Just to give a gist of how to perform business analysis, I'll use one particular technique, a simple one actually. So number one is, and let's take an example also, that way we can uh, uh, complement our theoretical understanding with the practical solution. Let's assume that you are hired by TCS, okay, and now TCS as a company has several different clients. For the sake of simplicity, let's assume that LIC, the Life Insurance Corporation of India, is the client of TCS. You are working on a very big multi-million dollar project for LIC, but you are part of the TCS team. Okay. Your manager comes to you and says that I spoke with the LIC guys and they want to run some analytics or they want to find some insights onto their claim settlement time. Okay. What does that mean, the claim settlement time? Let's say you go to LIC office and you put in your application for a particular claim. For the sake of simplicity, let's assume a car insurance or a car claim. Somebody met in an accident and they had a LIC policy. I'm not sure if they actually have a car insurance, so don't take it literally. I'm just giving you an example. They go to LIC and the decision makers or top level executives in LIC want to see that how much time we are taking in order to honor that particular claim. Okay, so they gave that particular project to TCS the same way Government of India gave the project of passport applications to TCS. The same kind of example that we are taking. Okay, so you are the business analyst. Now, what's the first thing that you would do? You would understand the context in two different ways. Number one is you would understand in general how insurance works or how car insurance works, right? And how the claims are honored, what is the process, and whatnot. That is the very first thing that you would have to understand. There is one particular technique that you can actually use, which is called PESTLE analysis. PESTLE is an acronym for six different things. Number one is P stands for political. Now it stands for political and not for politics. Okay, what does political means? It actually means the policies of the government. So for, let's say, for insurance companies, government makes a policy that you actually have to honor a particular claim within 72 hours, that is within 3 days. So every insurance company would have to adhere with that. In order to process those claims, they would have some sort of application, right? Most of the companies, they use an application called Guidewire, which you would be surprised to know that it's actually written in Java. Certain companies are actually moving to another product called Duck Creek. Now, Duck Creek as a whole is a product. Its interface is written in Angular, and then it runs in its proprietary cloud. There are certain companies which are actually running that particular tool onto AWS also. So I'm just trying to give you a business application of what you have learned in the last webinar. So the political factors or the policies that would impact the business. Okay, the need came because government mandated a policy that you have to honor the claims in the 3 days of coming it, and that is the reason why LIC actually came to TCS and told them that we want a system, we want a claims processing system to be built that can process those claims within 3 days. Second is economic. What economic impact it would have on LIC? That is certainly something that you would have to understand. That's not something, you don't need to be an economist for that. What I mean to say is that economic policies behind insurance. For example, there is something called as a reinsurer. What reinsurer means is all the insurance companies, they have a reinsurer. So there is an insurance company on top of the company that is actually giving you the insurance. So that is more from an economic point of view that you have to understand. Social impact, it would have a social impact on the lives of the people that now their claims are honored in 3 days. Now, the most important T stands for technological analysis. You would perform technological analysis. If LIC as a company is currently using some sort of claims processing system, if they are using, what are the gaps in the system, what are the bottlenecks in the system, why they do not want to use the system, or what are the what are the enhancements that we can actually do on the system. L stands for legal factors that are being applied onto that. So legal can be anything from uh, if somebody goes to, let's say, court, if he or his or her claim was not honored and whatnot, and he's the environmental impact. Here we don't have any environmental impact, but let's say if you're working for a company who manufactures PPEs, then certainly you would have to consider the environmental impact as well. So that's called pestle analysis. That is a very simplistic example of getting to the context. What you'll do is you'll draw different boxes, and that's where you will write your findings from the pestle analysis that you do. Second is identifying the stakeholders. Stakeholders is a very important term in business analysis. That's what we talked about when I was talking about the business analysis definition. You create something called a stakeholder analysis matrix. Let's say for the TCS LIC project, what do you think? Who would be the stakeholders? Okay, so we are short of time. I would rather refrain from asking you to put that in the chat, but I'll rather tell you. So stakeholders would be one, the government of India, because LIC is obviously a government public sector company, right? Second would be the decision makers within LIC. Third would be the people who are working onto the system. Fourth, the agents. Fifth, the policy holders, that is us. Okay, let's say if the entire population of India has some sort of policy from LIC, all actually become stakeholders. They are external stakeholders, not internal stakeholders. So there are two types of stakeholders, basically internal and external stakeholders. The third step would be to find out the business objectives, uncover the business objective. What the objective of the business is. The SWOT analysis and benchmarking. LIC would like to perform what their competitors are doing, what Max Bupa is doing to honor the claims in 72 hours. Or let's say, tomorrow they may market their product that, we'll settle the claims in real time. You put that onto the app, and within 1 hour, you have the money in your account. Right? That is something that we may eventually see. There are certain companies, I think ICICI Lombard, that does that now. I'm not sure, but that is something that we can see in the future. So what you would do here, the technique is SWOT analysis, is strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So strength of LIC as a company, what their weakness is, a lot of bureaucracy maybe. Strength is very robust system, very good network. Opportunity is they can move a lot of their products online. And threats are that they may see people who are reluctant to use the apps or the website. So that's a threat, but you can see that as an overhead to the business policy. And same thing with benchmarking as well, that, what the other companies are doing. Fourth step is to evaluate potential solutions. You would tell them the solution that, okay, there are some products out of the box. There are certain products which can be used for claims processing. I gave you two names, Guidewire. I gave you another name, which is Duck Creek. So these are considered these to be products from other companies. You buy it and then you use it. The same way, you buy a Dell laptop, you take it home and then you use it. The same way companies would buy these products and use it. Another example for the webinar, Ajtab sir bought this particular platform called Webinar Jam, and then we are using it. Same way for the company, they can buy some sort of product. Or another thing is, I can recommend a solution to Ajtab sir that you can actually develop a platform like Webinar Gem. We can have a database, we can run it on the cloud, we can develop it using Java or .NET or whatever it is. So you would do a cost benefit analysis of different products. You will see what's the amount associated, and then what benefit it would give to the company, and then you can decide whether you want to buy a product and customize it, or you want to develop something in-house, which is you would need a team of the developers to develop that. The fifth step is scope definition. A scope definition is nothing but to identify what the scope of the project is. Here, the project that LIC gave to TCS was about claims. At the same time, LIC would have a policy administration system as well, right? IT software where they can see all the policies onto the real time. But that is out of the scope of the project. We are only talking about claims currently, right? So we would create a context diagram that would talk about the boundaries of the system, so that you can visualize what is inside the boundary of that system, and you can see what things are in the scope of the project. When you are working with a billion-dollar project, you need to be very meticulous in defining the scope of the project, because stakeholders would come to you and tell them, they want everything. They basically want God, but you can't give them a God, right? So you need to be very meticulous and very stringent in terms of defining the scope of the project. Another thing is business analysis discovery, and you would create an implementation plan, how you're going to develop that particular product. Let's say you decide that, you tell your manager at TCS that we will create an in-house product. We'll create a product based on Java. We'll use AWS as our cloud. We'll use Oracle databases. We'll use MuleSoft as our integration engine and whatnot. You'll create an implementation plan and give it to your project manager. So that's basically the formal plan that you would have to create for the delivery point of view. The last three steps. Seventh is defining the project requirement. That is something that as a fresher, if you get into a business analyst role, you would do most of the time. So you would create documentation, like business requirement document. You would have high-level requirements that, okay, TCS requires a product to be built for LIC where they can process their claims. And the same way, you would create use cases. If you just type on Google, you would find n number of business requirement document use cases. So you can certainly go online and see what documents are. Now, you would support the implementation throughout the software development lifecycle. When your developers are actually developing it, you have to support them. How, as a business analyst, you can support them? Let's say a developer is developing a particular feature of claims, and there would be different business rules. For example, he may come to you and he may ask that, I'm creating a feature where a person would go and upload the policy document, but that needs to be ported in the customer relationship management system, CRM system. I don't know how to do that or how that works. What are the business rules that would define that? Simplistic would be, do I need to put the month and date in the form of DD, MM, YYYY, or in the form of DD and then a month name like JAN, MAY, and then the year? That is called a business rule. Who would get that information to the developer? The business analyst would give that. There is Agile, there is a Scrum that you can read about it. There are different models that can be used. Evaluating the performance, KPIs, the key performance indicators. There can be several key performance indicators. This time, let's take in another example of, let's say, okay, so Ankita is asking a question. Documentation means SRS. SRS is one type of documentation, Ankita. Software requirement specification. There are different documentation that the business analyst would produce. The business requirement document is one type of document that focuses more on the business requirements. You are talking to the business with the help of that requirement. So you won't talk about Java, or you won't talk about, that you would be using Oracle databases or cloud. Rather, what you would do is you will say that, we'll host our application onto the cloud. The SRS would talk about that, okay, we'll host our application on AWS, or we'll host our applications on Google Cloud Platform. So the more technicalities would go in the software requirement specification document. Business requirement would simply talk about the business needs. Okay, consider that to be SRS is focused more for the people who understand technology. BRD is more focused on the people who understand business. Coming back to the evaluating the performance, the KPIs, key performance indicators. I'll try to take another example. Let's say these days, gone are the days when people were using the cable televisions. Now they use Android TVs or okay, Ankita, thanks. So now they use Android TVs or smart TVs. What happens is, there is one subtle difference. On Android TV, everything is customized. Everything is targeted, and you see what you want to actually see. Still, let's say Netflix as a company, they may want to run some analytics and see that we funded a particular show. I don't know, there is a show called Pata Lok. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Wherever it is, it doesn't matter. But whoever put onto the money, they want to see that what is the time when people are actually seeing it? What is the demographic area where people are seeing it? It's in Hindi. Are people in Karnataka actually seeing it? Or what is the age group of the people who are seeing it? If there are not many people in the age group of 25 to 30 who are actually being, so these are all the KPIs that they want to address. Same thing with another show, the news channels, they actually use it quite a bit for their TRP. at how the prime time shows or the shows that come in the evening are being watched by the people, and what sort of age group of the people that are actually watching it. So a lot of data analytics actually goes behind the scenes. So these are the 9 steps, or we can call it framework, that you can use in order to perform business analysis. I know it's a bit of abstract certain times, but when you develop a more interest in understanding the business, you would find it very interesting how these techniques actually align with solving the business problems. Now, the most important thing, the careers. How can you start your career in business analysis? As we talked about, business analysis is more of a practice rather than roles, which means that there are several different roles within the practice of business analysis. I've jotted down 5 different roles and the years of experience which are required. Number one, if you are a fresher, if you have 1 or 2 year of requirement, the most typical way of getting into business analysis would be to get into a requirement analyst role. Once you progress, you may actually become an IT product manager or IT project manager. Eventually, down the road, after 5 or 8 years, you may become senior IT product manager, senior IT project manager, 8 to 10 years, somebody who is a business architect, uh, and then manager, somebody who is more than 10 plus years. I have about 6 years of experience. I am still a business analyst, so don't take it very literally. You can still be, there are 2 types of growth. There can be horizontal growth, that you are still a business analyst, but then you have more responsibilities, you have more traction and more visibility in the team. And then there is a vertical growth where you are a requirement analyst, you are IT product manager, and down the line you become a manager, vice president, eventually CEO. So it's a personal choice what you actually want to do. But a starting point to jumpstart your career in business analysis can actually be to become a requirement analyst first. How do you do that? IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysis, had several different offerings in terms of certifications. They have 3 core certifications. The first is ECBA, second is CCBA, and third is CBAP. So entry certificate in business analysis, you don't require any experience, industry experience to have it. There is a book called BABOK, which is the business analysis body of knowledge. The book has, it's like the Bhagavad Gita or Bible of business analysis. If you want to read it, I can't send it to you. Only the members can actually, members of IIBA can actually have it. But there are several ways of getting the book if you go online. I won't be able to tell you how to get the book formally on these sessions, but if you type on Google, there are several ways to get the book. Second certificate is CCBA, which requires you to have 3,500 hours of business analysis experience. How they define it, they are very stringent in auditing the application. You can't simply put that on the website. They will audit it, they'll call your employees, they'll make sure that you actually 10 year of experience. What they require is 3,500 hours of specific experience in business analysis tasks. If you are doing Java development, but if your title is business analyst, they won't consider it, But if your title is database developer, but if you're doing some sort of business analysis work and you can define it and talk about it, then they would certainly consider that. CBAP, Certified Business Analysis Professional, which is, I think, the most recognized certificate in the world of business analysis. It requires you to have 7,500 hours of experience, which translates to about 5.5 years of specific business analysis experience. I think the most better way of getting into business analysis is to, one, decide that you actually want to be a business analyst, and then decide that you want to pursue the ECBA certification if you don't have any experience. Get a job as a requirement analyst, or maybe a junior business analyst. Have that experience, learn from that, gain that 3,500 hours of experience, then go with CCBA. Once you have that, then you can eventually go for CBAP. After that, they actually have specialty certifications as well. For example, a business analyst who works in an agile domain, in an agile project, rather than a waterfall project. So you can go with that also. There are people who complement these certifications with other certification like Scrum certification and Agile certification. So if you guys are interested, you can let Ajtab sir know, and I can conduct a session on SDLC models, Agile and Scrum also. So you can think about getting into those kind of roles as well. Now, the last topic, I won't talk a lot about this because it's my very personalized take on how the things would evolve. I may be wrong down the line, but this is what I think. So how the things would evolve in future, in the post-COVID era. We'll see an emergence of the platform economy, the platformification, as they call it. What it means is, let's say Uber, it gave a platform to all the drivers, right? Same way with Zomato, it gave a platform to all the restaurants. Netflix, it gave a platform to the content creators. We may talk about AWS. In a sense, it's a platform because it's giving a platform to host their applications onto the cloud to several different people, right? So you would have platformification. There would be new jobs, new companies that would evolve. There may be automated trading. What that means is now, for example, if somebody in your family does trading, that is, has interest in stock market, they may be getting calls from several different people on buy this stock, sell this stock, blah, 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 and whatnot. Eventually, you may have something called as robo-advisory. Robo-advisory is there would be a robot that would work, and the robot would do all the analysis of the data, all the crunching of the data, and can suggest you, that you have 67% probability of making a profit if you buy some sort of a stock in the next 6 months. Who would develop that particular tool or that particular automated trading platform? Obviously, the developers, computer scientists, computer engineers, the folks in the IT. You would require a business analyst for that particular project who can tell you, how the trading actually works. So that's another business area. Another thing, if somebody of you is interested in or is a fan of fitness, then you would have heard of CureFit, CultFit. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the names correct. But what they have, a lot of fitness trainers, they are actually conducting the sessions online, and that particular platform called CureFit, they are providing a platform to host several types of yoga classes, nutrition classes, fitness classes, and whatnot. But there are people who are developing that particular platform, right? So I think that is one thing where we may see a lot of jobs. Second is a digital health solution. I have some problem in my ears, and I'm very worried to go to the doctor because there are so many patients, and I'm worried about contracting the virus. I recently did a remote diagnostics and followed a telemedicine with a doctor. I had a very good experience of having that. So they have a very robust solution, that you can approach to the doctor onto the app. Everything would be on the app itself, and they would do the diagnostics. The same thing, think about it in a different way. I'm not sure if you have heard of the tool, heard of the product called Fitbit. What it would do is it would track your activities, it would track your pulse rates, it would track your blood pressure, maybe the blood sugar levels, and heart rates, monitor the heart and everything. That data would eventually be stored on some server, maybe cloud, AWS. You would require some sort of interface to access that particular application. Then you would need a data analyst because that data is sensitive. The healthcare data is obviously sensitive. Healthcare IT, for a fact, is the largest growing industry where majority of the IT jobs would be, at least in the US and India, US and Canada and UK and Australia. Eventually, people are getting more vigilant about their healthcare data in India also. So we'll see an upsurge of jobs there as well. Now, digital contract tracing. Assume that COVID doesn't go for the next 2 years. We will see digital solutions where we can do contract tracing. Let's say there is a person X who contracts the virus. We need to have contract tracing solutions built digitally so that we can trace it to the people whom he or she met. An example can actually be the Arogya Setu app, or if you want to learn more about it, you can read about the response of the Singapore government and how they use technology in the most sophisticated manner that anyone can to trace the contacts, or maybe Vietnam as well. Third is omni-channel commerce. What that means is omni-channel means that you may have heard of omnipresent God, which means that God is everywhere. The same way commerce is everywhere. Amazon right now is everywhere. Amazon knows that I am giving this session onto this particular webinar. You are having it tomorrow. It may recommend you a solution, right? It may recommend you a data science or a business analysis, a product or a training onto their solution. So that is personalized e-commerce. That is targeted marketing. Have you seen on Amazon that it shows that the people who bought this also bought that. Recommendation engines. Amazon is very good in terms of that, and I think that this thing will get more traction after post COVID, because we would have a lot of, you know, uh, lot of physical stores. So that's all about me. I run a small website called 10minuteba.com. Unfortunately, it crashed this morning. So the engineers are working on fixing it. But still, if you want, you can reach out to me at info@10minuteba.com if you have any outstanding questions or concerns, suggestions, whatever it is. So that's all from my side, guys. I hope it was